Monday Night Raw starts off with CM Punk. He cuts a promo. He ends up mentioning what happened at SummerSlam, mentioning Seth Rollins cashing in on him, and mentioning that basically he got screwed over and that he basically is going after the World Heavyweight Championship and that Seth Rollins needs to count his days as World Heavyweight Champion because he will eventually regain that title again. You get LA Knight, he interrupts him. He basically ends up saying, look, he understands, the history between him and Seth Rollins. He understands he wants to go after Seth Rollins, but he also understands that, look, I had a championship match. You interfered, you caused a disqualification and ruined my opportunity. He said, look, I understand you want to attack Seth Rollins, but if you're going to do it, just do it on your own time and don't interfere in my matches. If you wanted to go after him afterwards, I would have been fine with that, but don't do it during my match. CM Punk did one of the biggest gaslighting moments ever and basically try to make it seem like LA Knight was going to lose the match regardless. So him interfering didn't matter, which I thought was hilarious, just completely gaslighting. And I'm going to be honest, this is a rare case where I was actually on LA Knight's side because I'm typically never on his side in terms of these feuds or whoever he's feuding with. But in this situation here, LNA was in the right. If you wanted Seth Rollins, you could have just got him after the match. There was no need to do it during. It actually makes more sense to do it after the match because he's more worn down after the match. But they go back and forth. LNA keeps on saying, look, he understands he wants to go after Seth Rollins. He ends up saying that, look, I agree with you going after Seth Rollins, but just do it on your own time. Punk is basically like, look, I'm going to do it whenever I want to, and that he wants, and then they fight, they go back and forth and argue who's the number one contender. You get Paul Heyman, he comes out with, the bronze, and basically this leads to eventually a match, a tag team match, which ends up becoming the main event. I like what they did here. I like the opening segment. I love CM Punk and LA Knight going back and forth. Really enjoyed that. That could be a potential matchup potentially in the future and becoming a feud, which I think could be very interesting. I think the promo battles between the two could be very interesting and very interesting to see who would the crowd really cheer because they're both baby faces and they're both incredibly over. So I'm very interested to see in that dynamic if they ever was to actually have a match, who would they actually cheer? And plus, this only gets a lot more interesting later in the show due to the main events. And I really like what they end up doing it. Well, I like what the outcome ended up being. I didn't like how the match played out, but I did like the outcome ended up being. But overall, this was a really good way to start off Monday Night Raw. We end up getting a tag team match between Dragon Lee, AJ Styles versus Dominic Mysterio and Grande Americano. Grande Americano interfered in the Dragon Lee Dominic Mysterio match last week, so that's why this match is happening. And AJ Styles is still chasing Dominic for the Intercontinental Championship, so it makes sense why this match ended up happening. Towards the end of the match, you end up getting Dominic Mysterio. He was playing a joke on him. He was wearing a luchador mask um, throughout the match here and there. And he ends up picking up the piece that Grande typically used to put inside his mask, and he ends up using it to pick up the victory. I like what they did here. Interested to see where this goes. I'm assuming AJ and Dominic is eventually going to have their match at Clash. Don't know what you do with Dragon Lee and a Grande. Also they're building towards the Triple A Mania match as well and Triple A, so that's why they also did this match as well because I think Dragon Lee, Dominic, and El Grande are all in that Fatal 4-Way match for the Triple A World Title. So that's why they also did this match. So interested to see how that plays out. I really don't speak about El Grande Americano because I just don't care about El Grande Americano because I feel like the gimmick is just dumb at this point. Like, it's a dumb, silly gimmick, and I understand it, but it kind of ran its course. I was hoping it would just end at WrestleMania 41, but they continued it and continued and continued. That's why I don't really coverage it because I just think it's dumb, stupid, and not that entertaining, to be honest, because it's going to be the same result. So, but it is what it is. Interested to see what happens with Dominic and AJ Styles, though. See how that eventually plays out. We end up getting Sami Zayn versus Rusev. We end up getting this match. This was actually an example of what I was mentioning with CM Punk and LA Knight. Because Sami Zayn told Sheamus before the match that, look, he understands he wants Rusev, but can he do it after the match? And Sheamus agreed. And this match ends up being disqualification due to the MFTs of Solo Sikoa. And then afterwards, you end up getting Sheamus and Rusev just brawling, and they end up going to the crowd fighting. That was a perfect example of what LA Knight wanted. It's like, look, if the match is over, attack him, and that's what Sheamus did. I like what they did with Sheamus and Rusev. This is really picking up as an interesting feud. I literally just said, just make it the Braun Strowman and Braun feud where they just constantly fight and fight and fight over and over and over again. I like what they're doing with that feud. Now, this Sami Zayn situation, I don't understand it. Why? Like, is he going to feud with Solo now? Because he interfered in the match, cost him the match, so I'm assuming he's going to be on SmackDown. And I said it was no shot he was being on SmackDown, but now it looks like he is going to be on SmackDown. So this doesn't make sense. It makes zero logic. Like, Because Sami Zayn shouldn't have been on SmackDown in the first place. So now now you need to make that make sense. Now you gotta have Solo team attack him on Raw. Then they're gonna go back on SmackDown feud. Then they're gonna go back on. It's like, why are we having all these different brands feud with each other? It's like, it makes no sense. Like, no, it made no sense for Sami to be on SmackDown anyway. Now we gotta try to make this make sense. I don't like it at all. Look, I get it. I get it. If you want him to do like a side quest before he can actually go after the World Heavyweight Championship, fine. But if you're going to give him a side quest, make it a side quest that makes sense, not a side quest that you're just forcing and that you just need something to shift something away from Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu and whatever and Sammy from the world. You could at least done something that made sense. This just makes no sense, and I have no interest in it because I like Solo, but I don't want Solo in this situation because he's just going to lose to Sammy, and he shouldn't be losing as U.S. champion. I'm fine with champions losing depending on the champ. Solo makes sense, but Solo already loses enough. I don't want him to lose more. It's already ridiculous the amount of times he loses in matches that lose non-title matches. So we'll see how this plays out, but I have no interest in this feud at all. We get Io Sky versus Roxanne Perez. This match ended up happening due to her match getting canceled with Naomi, so they end up giving us another match where they end up just giving us a backstage segment between the two, and that's end up have this match happen. This match was really good. This match was really good, and this match was very shocking because we end up getting Roxanne Perez picking up the victory due to interferences from Raquel, and the Kabuki Warriors end up coming out accidentally allowing Roxanne to pick up the victory. I like what they did here. I did not think I thought Io Sky was going to win. I did not think Roxanne was going to win. I was like, look, it's going to be a good match. Io Sky picks up the victory, predictable match, predictable outcome. But the fact that Roxanne won was very interesting because we ended up getting a backstage segment between the Kabuki Warriors and Io Sky where they're all going back and forth. Io is upset. Then you end up getting a moment where Asuka basically crashes out, pushes Io, and then walks away. So it looks like they're teasing a heel Asuka. And then there was another moment where Rhea Ripley ends up telling Io Sky, like, look, you possibly can't trust the Kabuki Warriors and that you probably need to break away from them. But Io Sky is like, look, I'm not trying to hear it, and you need to stay away from that. I like what they're doing here. And now I know that a lot of people were saying that they may turn Asuka heel and then she has to choose between the Kabuki Warriors and Rhea Ripley. I didn't think that was really a thing because they really wasn't pushing it until now. So I'm very interested to see how this plays out. And I like the potential story here. And this gives Io a storyline that doesn't involve the World Heavyweight Championship. So she can feud with Asuka, turn her heel. I like Asuka as heel way more than I like her as a babyface. So I think that I don't know if the story is going to work in terms of like back and forth, but it could be an interesting storyline, something else for Io to do instead of concentration of World Championship. I think it'd be very interesting. I'm interested to see what Rhea Ripley involvement could be in this as well. Is Io Sky potentially going to blame Rhea Ripley for her friendship falling apart with why am I saying damage control with the Kabuki Warriors? That could be very interesting as well. Now, one thing I will say, does this mean Roxanne Perez a number one contender now? Just saying, she pinned Io Sky, who was going to face Naomi for the World Championship. So does that mean that she's in the running for the World Heavyweight Championship? I highly doubt it. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I'm just saying, logically speaking, if you get a victory over someone who's going after the world title, I mean that should up them in the ranks of getting a title shot. I'm just saying. But we'll see how this all plays out. But this was all very interesting. I love what they did here. We end up getting Becky Lynch, Maxine Dupree for the Intercontinental Championship. Becky Lynch, of course, picked up the victory, but after the match, she ends up attacking Natalya, which I thought was hilarious. It was very funny, too, because she was going back and forth. Well, Natalya was getting all on her face because Becky Lynch was trying to play like that bully-type role of just constantly picking on Maxine, and it looked like she was about to just leave the ring, because I was like, oh, we're not, because I thought the match was always set up to eventually lead to a Natalya match, and the way they set it up was perfect, because she was leaving the ring, and then out of nowhere, she just comes out of nowhere and kick her in the face, which I thought was hilarious. So I'm assuming we're going to get that match where Becky Lynch will eventually win. And I think you could actually get that into like a promo. I mean, into like a multiple promos, multiple segments where this could actually become a feud. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Natalya because I just don't think she's that good. But this could be something new for Becky Lynch. I could see them actually dragging this out for a bit. This doesn't need to be a long feud. This could be like a good 1 month. Maybe you want to do it at Clash. I'm fine with that. So I like what they did here. This could be very interesting though. Now we get a quick Bayley segment. She ends up getting a vignette. And her single is basically saying that she's not proud of the person she has become, and that the person she has become has not she left her with a lot of like sadness, a lot of emptiness, and that she ends up mentioning her constantly losing, and that led to her constantly losing matches, and that she knows something needs to change. And she was being very vulnerable, very upset, and very passionate of wanting something, of something needs to change, of not being happy with the person that she is today. And then it ends with a cutoff, and it ends with an evil laugh. So it's very obvious that, well, I'm assuming that we're getting a heel Bailey, which I don't mind. Very interested to see how that plays out. Very interested to see how this heel version will be different than the other versions of her as well. I'm just hoping that with this heel version that they actually have her be credible. Because the problem I have typically when they turn people heel is that they typically only turn people heel only to benefit someone else. Typically like Kevin Owens with Cody Rhodes. You had Bailey when she turned heel. She was just Bianca's plaything of just getting annihilated all the time, constantly getting buried every single week in Damage Control. Like typically they have a weird thing where when they turn someone heel, all they do is just them as a enhancement talent to prop up someone else. So I'm hoping this is not a situation where she's going to lose to Lyra. Whenever they feud, I'm assuming she turn heels. I'm cool with her losing to Lyra, but do not have her continue to lose. That's the difference. I like what they're doing with Naomi because when Naomi would turn heel, I was like, oh, please do not tell me she's about to just lose matches constantly over and over again. But she's actually winning them. So I like what they're doing with Naomi. I like with Becky Lynch. I'm not saying every heel needs to win, but you cannot just have them be just a constant lose machine where they just lose everything, especially someone like Bailey. I understand why some heels lose a lot, like Solo, that makes sense. But like when you got people who are well established, Hall of Famers, they should not be losing this much as heels. So I'm hoping this heel run is different because I hated her heel run as Damage Control because they just kept on making her a loser. So hopefully this is different. Now we'll get the main event: LA Knight, CM Punk versus the Bronze. This caused a disqualification, which is getting a bit ridiculous. Half of the matches on tonight's show was disqualifications. Triple H, you really need to stop doing these disqualifications. I understand them to a degree. I understand you don't want no one to lose, especially due to what happened in the main event, but you got to calm down with these disqualifications. Cause disqualification because Seth Rollins comes out. He ends up attacking, I think, CM Punk. Leads to a brawl. Leads to Jey Uso comes out. He ends up making a save. Then you get Adam Pearce. He comes out, ends up making it a fatal four-way at Clash for the World Heavyweight Championship between Jey Uso, LA Knight, CM Punk, and Seth Rollins. That match should be an absolute banker. Very interested to see how that plays out. Then you end up getting CM Punk and LA Knight arguing. They go back and forth. Jey Uso tries to break it up, but LA Knight ends up attacking Jey Uso. This allowed the Bronze to get the advantage, and the Vision ends up standing tall over everyone. Overall, this was a good show. This was a really good show. Really enjoyed it. Multiple storylines progressed. Really enjoy what they did here. He needs to calm down on the disqualifications. But overall, this was a really good show. Can't wait to see what happens next. You guys let me know your overall thoughts and opinions down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.